Hello everyone and welcome back for a new Strategus video. Today we are going to make our first tutorial for beginners. This tutorial will focus on setup, what to do, what not to do with a setup, what is a good setup, what is a bad setup, everything we can say about a setup. I used to make a previous video about setup. I will just remake it. I may say something new because with time opinions changes. And feel free to compare this video with the previous one. Feel free to skip it if you think you don't need anything for the setup. I think it's good as an introduction, as it is the first thing you will do in a Stratego game, is making the setup. So as I mentioned in the previous video, you can use the setup editor and build your own setup just by drag and dropping the pieces. Once you have made your setup and you are happy with it, you can save the setup, name it, and you will find it once you decide to select a setup. You can rename it or delete it if you are unhappy or don't use it anymore, and you can clear the board just to make a new one. So, as I said, so we can see here our two lakes. Remember, no piece can go on the lakes, and we have 3 lanes which we can use to go to our opponent's side. So the first thing I would say is that I would divide the I actually will use the workshop because I think it will be useful for this. So I would divide our field. So let's focus just on the first 4 rows. I think we can divide it like this. Okay, half. We have the last 2 rows, which I would say are your danger zone, and your first 2 rows, which are the rows you can use to move. Okay, we could kind of separate it also. Oh, sorry. Clear. No. Can't I just delete it? Okay. Yeah, we can separate it from left and right, but in a sort of way it's quite symmetrical. So I will just focus on, let's say, the vertical perspective instead of horizontal perspective. So in the back 2 rows, what you will usually find? You will find the bombs and the flag. So let's say we want to put our flag like here. Okay, the flag is usually in the last row because it's the back one, so it takes longer for your opponent to reach it. Usually, I would recommend, especially as a beginner, to bomb in the flag. What does it mean? It means to put bombs all around the flag. You can make 3 different structures, I would say. The main one is called the tripod. It's the very classic one, so that's it. The second option is a flag in the corner, and you call it the corner flag. And the third option, I think I've never seen that, or hardly ever, but could happen, is what I would call a quadripod. So a bomb in the third row this time, and surrounded by 4 bombs. Now, I will focus, just as I said, let's put the flag here. I will focus on the tripod, and as you have 6 bombs, this leaves you 3 bombs to make another fake structure to get your opponent, confused. So one thing that many people do is putting a bomb like here or on the other side to make it confusing, like is the flag this one, like if a miner takes this piece on D2, maybe you can capture it and you will think that the tripod was C1, D2, E1 with a flag on D1, and it will hit the bomb. So sometimes this structure can be tricky. It's really often used, especially by Greeks player from my experience, but of course I can't generalize. We can, for example, put a bomb here just to pretend we have a corner flag, and let's say we put a bomb here. That could be a general idea. Now, what can we do to fortify our fake flag? Well, we can put, for example, Sergeant here, so that it's the lowest piece which is higher than a minor. Remember, minor is number 3, sergeant is number 4, so if the bomb is taken by a minor, the sergeant can take it back, and it's still one less minor to worry about our true tripod flag. As I said, we want to save minors for the end game, so let's say we put one here, one here, one here. 3 to 4 minors in the last row is good. We can put 1 and I don't know, let's say 2 in the back row. It's good to have them for the end. Sometimes you can afford to have one upper just to make bluffs. Then we want to decide what we want to put in the front rows. So one can say, okay, we'll just put the marshal, so the number 10, and charge. The problem is that when your marshal is known, most of the opponents will just react by charging with the general, because nothing except a bomb or except the opponent's general will be able to capture it, and you may lose quite a lot of pieces. So the marshal and general, and actually sometimes also the colonels, should be quite hidden. I would say that usually your the strong pieces are in what I think it was Spion called it the safe zone. So these are your safe zones because they are covered by the lakes, and usually you have most of the strong pieces here. This region here in the middle and on the right can easily be scouted, so that's why you don't want to have your marshal or your general easily scouted. So just to begin, I think a good strategy is, for example, having a marshal here and say the general here. So you have one on each side covering the left and the right, and somehow also the middle. The spy is sometimes extremely useful near the general because you can make a good defense, and we will see this in a later video. So let's put the spy here for at the moment. Okay. So it's a good defense against the marshal. In the front row, it really depends on the player. You mainly find scouts, sergeants, lieutenants, and captains. Sometimes you find major and colonels. It's good for people who want to get early advantage. It's not so good for defending afterwards. So it really depends on your skill and if you want to be up in material or up in knowledge. Again, that's the balance we were discussing in the previous video. As beginners, I would say you can afford having one major or one colonel, but definitely nothing more than that. So let's say we want to put a major here. Okay, so we can put something like a captain, a captain here, a captain here. That's 9. Let's say another captain here and one here. We can then put some scouts, so scouts is useful here. They are useful just, you know, to see what is coming, what did your opponent put in the front row. Sometimes people put bombs in the front row, and sometimes people even bomb lanes, so that's quite useful. So we can put this. We can then put our sergeants, so we can put one here, one here, one here, and we have already one in the back. And then our lieutenants, let's say to put one here, as it will protect this bomb, one here to protect the other bomb, that's quite useful. And then we have, I don't know, one like here, and one like anywhere here. Captains is done. We have one major, we can still put 2, so let's say we put one here, just, you know, to be safe, and one like, I don't know, anywhere you want, say here. And then we have our colonels, so we can decide to put one here, and one like there. So they will be useful to push once most of the pieces are known. And then I put the minor, so all the rest is just for scouts, so we can complete. Okay, that's just a setup randomly made. I already see something I don't like, having 2 back row scouts, so we could decide just to swap these 2 icons. So, okay, to become a scout and to become a lieutenant. Okay, that can be something. So we save a scout for the endgame, can be really useful. Scouts are not to underestimate. and we have this setup. Okay, so we are happy with it. Now I will just, yeah, you can save it if you want. I will delete everything and now go with things one doesn't want to do, doesn't want to see on a setup, especially as a beginner. So the first thing I really don't want to see is this, blocking a lane. You will lose 2 bombs. This means that your opponent only has then 4 possible attempts to lose a piece, and most likely, yes, we will capture pieces with these 2 bombs, but mainly weak one. As I said, scouts, maybe a captain if you're lucky. But with bombs, we want to take something good, and it will favor your opponent to try at random, as well people call lotto. So we don't really want this to happen. Even worse is doing this. Right, blocking 2 times and just saying, okay, I will charge from one side. That's absolutely something which must be forbidden. We don't want this to happen. Okay. Then another thing I don't want to see, which is even worse. So, okay, let's say we want to put one bomb here. Okay, out of the bombing effect, let's say you're bombing this. Okay, that thing could be a war thing. So this means you would basically bomb in all these pieces which can't move. So as I said in the previous video, you want to avoid having pieces which can't move. That's something to really avoid. Always give the opportunity to your pieces to be able to move. Right, something I see from quite beginners, and I think it's not a good idea, they just put a lot of bombs at random here. Maybe they don't block pieces, you know, but they make it very difficult. So 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say they put one more here, and one more here. Okay, they make it extremely difficult, like half of the board is lost, right? They put the flag here in the corner, and then they have all the strong pieces around here. So yes, they can make an extremely fast attack, they can blitz and so on, but all these pieces here are almost lost, are difficult to move, and if someone, usually they are weak one, like they have a captain maybe, a sergeant and so on, so just a number 7, so a major, will just run and take a lot of pieces and will be down in material pretty fast. And furthermore, it will be easy for your opponent to attack right from the back row, as you will have used almost all of your bombs not in the back row, and it's quite easy to go to the flag. Furthermore, the flag is not bombed in. This means that anything can really easily capture it, especially if your opponent has a scout. He will go, especially in the endgame, and capture the flag. That's something we don't want to see. Right, another thing I don't want to see, but that never happens, is a spy front row. That's not a good thing because anything will capture it. And as I said, it's a good thing to have the general next to the spy. Let's imagine this situation. You have the general, you have the spy, and you have your opponent marshal. Okay, your opponent is in trouble because if he attacks, you will lose the general, but you will get the marshal. That's not always a good position. And if he wants to pass any piece, you will just attack it, and if he risks, you can take, or you can go up. So it's a good defense. You can easily block one side just with these 2 pieces, at least for some time. So that's usually a good strategy. Of course, it's quite predictable, so many players say, okay, once I know the general, I more or less know the region where the spy is, and therefore I can afford going on the other side with the marshal. So as a beginner, it's not a problem to have a predictable spy, I would say. It's only when you are expert, let's say it, that you can afford having your spy on one hand and the general on the other side, as you will have knowledge on how to defend your general with something else than the spy, for example with a bluff. Right. I think this is almost everything I wanted to say with the setup. Maybe a few more things is that the first two lanes, as I said, are the pieces where you need to be able to move. So you can sometimes put a bomb. I like to put one bomb sometimes in the second or in the first row, but when you start putting two, moving gets difficult, right? So try to make a way so that you can easily move from the left to the right to block pieces, come in the middle, come on the right with your strong pieces to block. You want mobility, and here you want no understanding for your opponents. That would be the key concept. Like, your opponent mustn't understand how your structure is in the back row, and your your front two rows must be comfortable for you to move, and so it's easier to defend, it's easier to attack, so it's a great benefit. Now, of course, many people will definitely go at random in the first two rows because they don't expect many bombs. So, that's why just putting one bomb is a good thing. In many setups, the thing you are interested in are the pieces, as I said, in your safe zone, because you most often have good pieces in these areas. Right, I think I said almost everything. Just a quick note I didn't say in a previous video. Sometimes some people told me, okay, so if I understand correctly with the ranks, the higher number take the lower number, it means that the marshal is the best piece, then it's the general, then it's the colonel, and so on. Well, it's partially true, and I will show you why. Okay, we have 5 minors, right? 4 and 5, okay. What can these 5 minors beat? Well, they can beat all the bombs, right? So they can beat 6 pieces. Okay. They can beat the spy. They can beat 8 scouts. I'll put it there. And let's say 8. And they can beat the next, the 3 minors, right? Because you trade. So, in the end, a miner, in a sort of way, is able to capture 20 pieces. So it's half of the setup, right? It's impressive seeing it like this. Okay, so miners can take 20 pieces, so they, in the end, in a sort of way, when a miner is attacking, he has 50% chance to win or draw. So that's quite interesting. Now, if we take the sergeants, so we have 4 sergeants. Okay, what can they take? Well, they can take... Well, they can't take the bombs, sorry. They can take the spy. And I will put it red. Okay, they can take the 8 scouts. They can take 5 miners. 5. Okay, and they can take 4 sergeants. Or let's trade with 4 sergeants. And that's it. So what do we see is that sergeants, even if they are higher ranked, they can only capture 18 pieces, while miners can take 20. So I'm not saying that the miner is necessarily stronger than the sergeant, because the miner loses against the sergeant, okay. But the miner is able to capture more pieces. And I think we don't see the power of peace only by seeing how many different types of pieces he can capture, but how many different pieces he can capture, which is slightly different. That's why I said in the previous video, it's really important for you to know how many of each rank of pieces you have. Again, yes, the marshal doesn't fear anyone except okay the bomb, but he can be defeated by the spy. So yes, the spy fears a lot of pieces, but it's able to capture the highest ranked one. See, everything depends on the way you play your piece. Okay, that's a good thing I wanted to say. Again, from my perspective, also the general might be, from some aspects, the strongest piece because it only fears marshal and bombs. It doesn't fear also the spy, but it fears the marshal. So it's really difficult to say which piece is the strongest and which isn't. Every piece is extremely strong, and that's why every piece matters. Right. Maybe a last thing. Many people also ask me, okay, what to put in the front rows. I personally really like to have captains. I think I'm a captain player because they are high, but they are the lowest among the highest pieces. So they are useful because only 3 majors, 2 colonels, the gen and the marshal can defeat them, and then they can draw against captains, and drawing a captain is absolutely fine. Depends at the stage of the game, of course. So captains are useful. Sergeants are extremely useful, especially to take scouts, because people will waste a scout just to find a sergeant, and it's not that much of big information to know the sergeant. And scouts are also useful, just to be sure you are not losing anything. The pieces I want to avoid having the front row, so meaning these 2 squares, these 2 and these 2, are the marshal, we don't want to have it, the general, we want to avoid this, the spy, as I said, is not good, and then we want to avoid minors. Usually minors front row are really not good because you will need them later on. You can put a minor front row if you can escape it extremely fast, but you will likely lose it and lose an opportunity to take a bomb. So these 4 pieces I would really avoid having them in the first 2 in the front row. Any other piece can be put, as I said, colonels and major, so 8 and 7. You can put them, but it's not that good. Captains, lieutenants, sergeants, and scouts are excellent. Bombs can be, as I said, as long as they don't block a full lane. Right, so this being said, I hope you take the time to think about your setup. I think I would recommend you build 2-3 setups. You can feel free to share them to me. I will give you a hint. I think most of the community will agree to say that there are bad setups. There are no best setups. I tried to make a survey on this and putting what for me was my best setup, the one which allowed me to get 4 in a world championship. Most of the people were saying that setup was extremely bad, so I think the setup depends on the playstyle in the end. Right. This being said, I thank you very much for having watched the video. We will make a second, you can watch the second lesson, also for beginners, which will be the importance of the 3 square rules. Thank you very much, have a nice evening, and see you soon.